Enthusiacs. Welcome back to the real Hero Talk podcast. I am your host, Judge Greg. Joining me today for the first time ever, straight from the No Time for Time Travel podcast, the driving force behind the Loosely Connected Network, I have Tony. Tony, welcome to the hallowed halls of Hero Talk.
Thank you for the welcome. Hello, everybody.
All right, so before we get too deep down the rabbit hole, let's just, for the listeners who perhaps have not heard of you somehow, because I'm pretty sure we plug you in every episode, but anyway, for those who don't know, could you tell us just a little bit about Loosely Connected and the No Time for Time Travel podcast?
Sure, yeah. So I'm part of a podcast called No Time for Time Travel. Shorthand is NTFTT Pod. And that podcast is me and two of my friends, Quack and Lamb. And we are just a nerdy podcast, talk about nerdy topics that's suggested by our listeners. And we're just friends and just wanted to record our conversations because we thought it was funny. And we figured someone out there might like it. So, yeah, and then the Loosely Connected network, I kind of started that with all the podcasts I was listening to. And I thought it would be nice that we all kind of like shared our listeners with each other because I feel like our audience may like each other's things. So I asked you guys from Enthusiacs to be part of it. Also the Almost Better Network to be part of it. And, you know, some other ones like Talking Crass and Gamers Without Borders and One Track Gamers. So yeah. All right.
Now that everyone knows who you are, pretending for a moment that the same listeners who listen to me aren't the same listeners that listen to you. Now that we got that out of the way, let's get into our film today. So this one, just by listening to your podcast, I know that this is a film that you enjoy. You shared with me today you've seen it 30 times, give or take. That might be a little extreme, but sure, why not? And since you also do I call your podcast a video game podcast because you do a lot of video game topics, but that's not really fair because you do things that aren't also video game podcasts. Like your last one was about Super Bowl commercials. Dating the recording a little bit because it'll be a few weeks from now when we go up. But yeah, the last one that just went live this week was Super Bowl commercials. Even though I asked you to talk about the Super Bowl game, you talked about the commercials instead.
But my co-host did talk about the Super Bowl. He did.
So. His takes were accurate. They really were. Although he could have talked a little bit more about well, I don't know how closely he's following. I actually get the local stations, and so their biggest stories here. But like the you know what? We're not a sports podcast. This is not sports talk with Judge Greg. We're gonna leave that. So anyway, so this film is 1990. When did this come out? 94. 1995 martial arts action adventure video game adaptation Mortal Kombat from director Paul W.S. Anderson. Although I did notice in the credits he was just Paul Anderson. So I don't know when he started adding the W.S.
I think there was like another Paul Anderson that was in that industry that he had to distinguish himself from him, like maybe a few years later.
I don't know. It was peculiar because I knew it was a Paul W.S. Anderson movie, but the credits showed and it was Paul Anderson. I specifically noticed that. And another thing I noticed is like, it's really odd to see a Paul W.S. Anderson movie that doesn't have Mila Jovovich in it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But I don't think they were married yet because didn't they meet at Resident. I don't know. We're not talking about Mila Jovovich as much as I think she could have contributed to the movie. So we're talking Mortal Kombat. As always, Hero Talk is a spoiler podcast. Nothing is off the table. Everything is fair game. You've been warned. So Tony, I'm going to presume, by the fact that you've seen this movie 30-some times, that you're probably a fan.
Yes and no. I mean,
okay.
So I was a fan for the movie for the longest time, and I think like last year my friend was on the phone with me and she was watching it on TV, and then I just started like pretty much quoting the movie while she was watching it, and she was like, it's as if I was just there doing commentary with every scene that she's watching. So so I am a fan in that sense, and I always have a memory in my mind that I had such a great time watching the movie. And then I watched it again for this podcast, and I realized, it was fun, but
it has not aged gracefully.
Yeah. So I haven't seen it for a few years now. And it also didn't help that this is the first time I saw it using Blu-ray.
Ooh.
With you know, the movie's not it's not really made for that clear.
No, it was
quality.
not made in the high definition era, and So I watched it. I thought I was gonna have to dig out my DVD, but it's on Amazon Prime. Actually, it's one of the Prime videos.
Oh, really? I didn't even look over there.
I always check because I have a big book of DVDs, but they're not in any particular order. So I always just look to see if I can stream it before I try to dig the thing out. And yeah, as it turns out, this thing was on Prime Video, so I watched it on Prime Video, and yeah, it is. The big things that stuck out to me was that the CGI has not aged well. And I remember I saw this in the theater. You did not, because you said you were too young and you weren't allowed to go see it.
Yep,
but
too young at the time.
Yeah,
so
I actually saw this in the theater, and I remember the lead up to it. And I think maybe MTV or somebody had like a special on it, and they were really bragging on the reptile effects and how state of the art they were, and how they were, top of the line, and the best and the most advanced we've ever seen. And when you look at them today, it's just scary, just how really jarring and fake Reptile looks.
Yeah, I do agree. So that was one of the first things I noticed too. When the first appearance of Reptile came, I was like, wait, I don't remember it looking that bad.
Yeah.
So it was like thinking back, it was, so what? It was 95, yeah. So that was when PlayStation 1 first got released. So compared to PlayStation 1 graphics, yeah, that looked good, but it has not, I agree, it has not aged well.
No, it did not look well, but man, I remember them bragging on this so much. I mean, some of the visual effects still are passable. Like when Shang Tsung changes people, the morphing effect, those still work. Those didn't really pull me out of it too badly. But man, Reptile was bad, and some of the Goro scenes were not good either.
Yeah, Goro, he just looked like, well, okay, so the body of Goro, right? He literally just looked like two guys stacked on top of each other. Yeah,
so
it
was.
They could have done a better job of that.
And he looked like he was made out of plastic.
Yeah, and then like the parts where they kind of close up on his face, like I felt very disturbed watching those scenes.
It doesn't look like a real thing. It really doesn't. And I don't remember it being that bad. And I'm wondering if maybe reviewing all these movies for all these years has made me too cynical. But yeah.
No, it's I kind of wish it was better. Oh, and then the scene, what's it called? Like when they were on the boat, and then they were leading to the island. And then was it Shang Tsung raised his hands in the air, and then all the CG effects, and he's like, "It has begun." Yeah.
Oh, also I'm gonna say spear for lack of a better word, but the thing that's coming out of Scorpion's hand.
Gosh.
Yeah. That does not look good. That looked.
Yeah.
That was scary for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I think so when I was watching it when I was younger, I thought that was really cool because the quality of video was not as clear as now. And but then rewatching it, I noticed like the keyframing of it, like the CG where it's on the hand, it moves. Like it's not perfect on the hand.
I know. I saw that too. Yeah. It's the actor, and God bless the actor who played Scorpion, because he's been in a ton of stuff. Chris Casamassa, he was on WMAC Masters as Black Dragon. He was a stunt double, I think, for George Clooney on Batman and Robin. And he's played Scorpion in more than one time. But man, he's holding his hand as still as he possibly can, so that they can put the thing on it. But they did it with even less care than they than they erased a mustache off Superman's face. Really,
yeah.
It was like that. It was really jarring to see. But I mean, it was 2000 or it's 1995, so I guess I can forgive it. But I mean, it's still a fun movie. It's just some of the elements did not age very well.
Yeah, and then going with that spear thing, like it's okay. So I don't remember anywhere in the game where Scorpion's spear was a living being.
No, I want to say no. When this came out, Mortal Kombat 2 was the game that was out. Now we'd all moved on to the sequel, and you could see some elements of that in the movie.
Yeah,
but I want to say in both of those, the spear was definitely portrayed as a literal spear that he would throw.
Yes, it was.
And then all of a sudden in the movie, it's like a weird bird thing that crawls out of his hand.
Yeah. It was like a lizard snake with bird claws, like cacaw. Like It was so weird.
I'm surprised more people weren't angry about that, honestly, because
that is true. I didn't hear. Well, internet was still in its
yeah,
infancy.
that's true. We people didn't get together and get butthurt, but like I had a friend in high school, and he was a giant Mortal Kombat fan. I mean, the biggest Mortal Kombat fan. Everything was the dragon. Whenever he was writing stuff, he would always use K's for the hard cuss sound instead of C's. Insisted on doing that, and teachers would get so mad at him, and he was like, "No, I'm okay." I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. But he loved this movie, and he had no issue with that. So I suppose I don't have any room to argue, because he was the biggest Mortal Kombat fan, and he saw this movie like 13 times in the theaters, and he had no problem with the weird lizard bird spear thing coming out of his hand. But it's just weird. It is really weird.
Yeah, and actually, it sounds like you're describing me, by the way, in grade school.
Oh, really? At grade school?
Yeah.
Weren't you a little young to be playing the Fatality game? I mean, this was when I think I was maybe in middle school, early high school. I'm not going to do the math in my head right now, but I was probably around 8th or 9th grade or somewhere in there when this came out. I was not in grade school. I was at least in one of the upper schools. I can't remember which, but I mean, this was the game, because it was in the theaters, and we were all into fighting games then, because that was the thing in the arcades, was the fighting games. And I remember the first time any of us saw Fatality, and man, video games were not super violent back then. I mean, not the mainstream ones. Like you'd still get some violent PC games, but I mean, you wouldn't see a dude ripping another guy's head off and the spinal column still attached or anything like that. So it was really nuts to see, and it set off this whole craze. And I'm not going to go into video game history, but there was a lot of us were just into it just for the fatalities alone. But you were in grade school and into this game?
Yeah, I remember very clearly. It was like first grade when Mortal Kombat came out, and then it didn't help that my cousins always. So I had a Sega Genesis, and then my cousins, same cousin, will always get me Mortal Kombat, whichever sequel it was, on the Genesis every time it came out for my birthday every time.
Wow.
So, and then my parents didn't really care, because like they were like, oh, it's just a game, it's not real. So they were more of like, oh yeah, it's not real, so they didn't get like offended or anything. So they just let me play the games.
Well, that's fair. All right, so moving on. The other big thing I just want to point out before we start talking about the cast is it was very clear when you were watching the movie who was an actual martial artist and who was not a martial artist but learned the martial arts for this movie.
Yes, that is very true.
The Sonya Blade Kano fight.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I couldn't watch it. I actually just fast forwarded past it today. I watched this movie today for this recording, and I just skipped it. It was so bad. I mean, you take a look at that, and then when you look at some of the fights that between people who are actual martial artists, and I'm thinking specifically like the Liu Kang and the Shang Tsung fight between two pretty talented martial artists, that was really fun to watch until they slowed it down to a crawl on the end. Even some of the like the Sub-Zero and the Liu Kang fight was also really well done. Again, until they slowed it way down at the end for the ridiculous water spear, whatever. Okay.
Oh my gosh! The was it? They used the element that brings life or something.
Yeah,
like
the element that brings life will win you next. Why don't you just tell him? Just tell him water. Why are you talking in riddles?
Yeah, it's like it's not like Shang Tsung can hear her.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And... there's no reason to be coy and speak in riddles and stuff. Shang Tsung doesn't want you talking to him at all, so it doesn't matter if you tell him something useful or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't.
And speaking of Shang Tsung, every time they're outside and fighting, like the Katana and Liu Kang fight, or the other one where Liu Kang was fighting that other guy from WMSC Masters. Well, yeah, it felt like Enter the Dragon, like that Bruce Lee movie. It just the decoration, or not decoration, but the set.
Yeah,
felt like that.
I know exactly what you're saying. It had a very much Enter the Dragon feel to it, which I thought was maybe reaching a little far for this movie. Like, look, I don't dislike the movie, but if we're being perfectly honest here, you're not Enter the Dragon. That movie's a classic, and you're sort of a a campy, passable video game adaptation movie. But
although to be fair, the video game was based off took a lot of influence from Enter the Dragon.
Yes, it absolutely did. You are correct. I'm trying to look up the name of the other guy from WMAC Masters. TJ Storm, I believe he was.
Oh yeah, he played. I think he was the Machine on WMAC Masters.
I'm looking him up right now because this is riveting radio. Man, you got to scroll way down. This guy has been in a ton of stuff. I got to read some of this. He's been all over. Holy cow, this guy works.
And yeah, I think when I first saw the movie, it was also around the same time as WMAC Masters, and there was a character on WMAC Masters that was just like Liu Kang. It was you remember Superstar?
A little bit. There's only like a handful of guys I remember. Red Dragon, Yin Yang Man. Shoot.
Yeah, Red Dragon was Chris Casamasas.
Yes,
right?
that was Chris that man. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So the guy who played Superstar on WMAC Masters is actually the motion capture guy for the Mortal Kombat games for Liu Kang.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So that was cool. And I was like, why didn't they just get him for this movie?
Okay,
then?
maybe I found the wrong guy. I thought he looked like the guy, but I'm not seeing the WMAC Master in his IMDb. So he was uncredited, so it's very hard to find right now because that's why
okay.
I'm looking all over the place. But all right, so I might not have found the guy. Doesn't matter. I can cut that part out.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, as long as we're talking about the cast and people that are fighting each other, let's just go down and we'll start with the big name because he was the big name that was attached to this movie who did not come back for the sequel, which is a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert, the Highlander.
Yep. He was just Highlander the whole time. Like
he really was.
He was. I was like, okay, Highlander with like lightning powers. Like I could not see him as Raiden.
No. If it wasn't for the hat, it wouldn't have seen Raiden at all when he was around.
Yeah,
honestly,
just
but it's just he didn't try to play like Raiden. He didn't even try to play like a god of lightning or thunder or anything. He just kind of played the same Highlander character. Not even. He wasn't even like Duncan MacLeod. He was Duncan or Connor?
I don't remember.
Know. One of them was from the TV show, and one of them was from the movie, and I can't remember which was
like
which.
Connor might have been the TV show one.
No, he played Connor. I'm looking him up. Yeah, he played Connor.
Okay.
Duncan MacLeod was the one from the TV show, although he did guest on the TV show a couple times. So
yeah, you know what? And then because this was when Christopher Lambert or something when he was young, I realized that he looks a little bit like Thomas Jane.
A little bit, yeah, he does.
Yeah, because I was like, is that the Punisher playing as Raiden?
No.
So.
Chris Lambert. Yeah. So the Highlander, because you got a lot of Highlander in here, and I'm not going to list everything he's been in. He's been in a ton of stuff, but everyone knows him as the Highlander. Nobody knows him as Raiden. But moving on. So next, as Liu Kang, we have Robin Shu, who I've actually talked about on Hero Talk before. He was in Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. Let's see. He's been in Beverly Hills Ninja. He played Mowgli in the first live-action Jungle Book.
That was
him.
What? The one in the early 90s?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I have that VHS. I did not know that was him.
Yeah, that's him. I'm trying to look up when that actually came out because I know that was him. We've talked about him on this podcast before. Fine.
It was it's funny because like for him, I saw when I saw him again in the Street Fighter movie, I'm like, is he only getting work for video game movies now? Like, and later when we talk about another cast member, I'll mention that again.
Yeah, all right. I'm trying to look up the one from the '90s, the Jungle Book. I'm only getting the 2016. I want to make sure I verify this. Why am I not seeing the one from the '90s? Did I make this?
I think it's 1994.
Maybe.
So.
It was called The Jungle Book, right?
Yeah. Just type The Jungle Book 1994.
Okay, Jungle Book 1994. All right, there it is, IMDb. And, oh, no, Jason Scott Lee played Mowgli. I am way off.
Oh, okay.
Way off. Okay, I got to cut that part out, too. Although, fun story, Jason Scott Lee, he did play Bruce Lee in Dragon, the Bruce Lee story, so.
Yeah, didn't he, I think he also, like, played in another Disney thing.
Yeah, he was in Lilo and Stitch.
Oh yeah.
He played. I think it was Lilu's sister's friend. I don't know. Okay, we're not talking about him anymore. All right, so Robin Shu. He was not Mowgli. I misremembered that, but he was Gen in Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li. He was also in DOA: Dead or Alive. So another movie based on a fighting video game. Yeah, he's.
Who did he play in Dead or Alive?
He was a pirate leader.
Oh, go okay.
Yeah, so he wasn't a big
So,
part, no.
basically-
But yeah, that's
Yeah, small
I
part.
had to look that up too because I thought like I don't remember him in that movie, and I'm not super proud that I've seen that movie, but I've seen that movie and possibly own it on DVD.
I also saw that movie, and I wish I didn't.
It was not a great movie. I didn't watch it and love it, then buy it. It kind of went like it was $2 at a Blockbuster, dating myself a little bit with that reference. And I said, well, for $2, oh, maybe I'll watch this movie. And it's hard to watch.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Anyway, it's also the closest thing we're going to get to a Ninja Gaiden movie because Ryu Hayabusa is a character in that movie.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah.
I think they just call him Hayabusa just to not. Anyway, so that's Liu Kang. We talked about him. Let's talk about Johnny Cage.
Yeah, okay, so I really, really like the character, Johnny
Mhm.
Cage. The actor, I have not seen in much after that movie.
Yeah, so I had to look him up. I've seen him in some stuff actually. He was in Resident Evil Extinction as a character that didn't leave an impression on me. He was in this indie perhaps horror. I don't know if horror is the right word. This indie thriller, I think it was Starved or Hungry. Hunger is what it was called. And that was on Netflix. I watched that. I did not recognize him from it. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. It showed up on his IMDb, and I said, oh, I saw that. I know who that guy was. So he did not leave an impact on me. He was on Days of Our Lives for a while.
Oh, it says here he's also on... He was a commander in Iron Man 3?
Yeah, and I don't know who that was. I don't know if Commander was like a rank or if he was one of... I don't know. I try to block out Iron Man 3.
Yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why no one remembers he was in there.
All right. Well, he played Johnny Cage. I mean, he was a passable Johnny Cage, other than his fighting was a little stiff.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of goes with like the whole thing about the press thinking Johnny Cage is a fake.
Yeah. Well, I also thought Johnny. Although I will say, for like in terms of guys who had to learn martial arts for movies, because I don't believe he was a martial artist. I've seen nothing in his history that says he actually was martial artist. I'm not like guys like Robin Chu who have been doing martial arts actually since he was 19. I was going to say since he was in diapers, but no, that's not true. Robin Chu didn't start martial arts until he was 19 years old. Mm-hmm. But I think he just learned it for the film, and I mean I would criticize that normally, but again, moving on to Bridget Wilson as Sonya Blade. I should point out she is now Bridget Wilson-Sampras, but she was Bridget Wilson at the time for Sonya Blade. That fight was not good. Oh, it was hard. It was.
I'm glad there was no other fight that she had to participate in.
She did not do a lot of fighting. They kind of they let Sonya Blade's story kind of within the first hour. Her story was over, and then she was just kind of there. And,
that fight was pretty much the end of her story. Anyway,
and then make of that what you want. And then she's just there to wear silly dresses from that point on. But most people remember her as Miss Veronica Vaughn from Billy Madison.
And I think it was around the same time that movie got released, right?
Same year.
Like within a year or two.
So, yeah. But nobody really remembers her from this. And then she did not come back for the sequel.
Yeah. And just while we're talking about Sonya Blade, I thought it was really weird that she was in the nightclub with a giant gun.
That was
and no
so peculiar, right? That scene where they're going after Kano and they go after Kano in this nightclub, this crowded nightclub full of people with like all their gear on and their guns out. And not only is nobody freaking out about this, but they have no issue. Like they're like using the gun to push people out of the way. And then they have a firefight. I remember one guy runs down the stairs and tries to shoot her, and he holds his like semi-auto Uzi sideways.
Yeah.
I was just shaking my head.
Yeah, I remember that.
Listen, I was in the military. I've had to shoot guns. You don't hold them sideways. That's just not a thing you do.
Yeah, I don't think I'm pretty sure they didn't have a budget to get a consult.
Apparently not. No.
Yeah.
Although I will say that she dressed like somebody who was. I didn't really get a good feel. Was she police? Was she military? I
mean, in the game, her story is she's special forces.
Yeah, but she also never wears anything remotely close to a special forces uniform in the game, other than it's the same color.
Yeah, it's a fantasy game.
That it is. Okay. I got nothing else to say about her.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just happy that she didn't fight more than
that was so
what she
terrible.
did. I don't even call it fighting.
It was hard. It was so very clear that they were like, especially when there was a lot of switching of camera angles. And when you switch like that, when you can't sustain the shot, that means you're trying to make it look better than it really is. It's not like when you watch some of the old Jackie Chan films And, you know, you've seen a bunch of these, right? Where they just, when it's Jackie Chan and it's his entire stunt group, it's like they just set the camera against the wall and they just let it run. And these guys just do crazy stunts for 45 minutes in front of the camera in the same shot.
Yeah.
That was not what was happening here.
Yeah, and then when she was like prepping for her fight, that was so cringy. Like just her just like standing there.
Why would they show that? That was so awful. That did not help at all.
That was bad. That made everything worse.
It made it so much worse. Oh no. Okay. Let's move on. This was not supposed to be the pick on Bridget Wilson. It's not her fault. It's the director's fault. It's Paul W.S. Anderson's fault. So Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa played Shang Tsung, and so he is. I'm pretty sure he's a fairly accomplished martial artist. If not, he faked it incredibly well.
Yeah, I don't know if he is or not.
Let's see. I'm looking at his quick bio right now. So looks like his dad was in the United States Army. He was born in Tokyo. He moved around a lot, again, because his dad was in the Army. So like Fort Hood, Fort Polk, Fort Bragg. His mother was an actress, so probably it's how he got into it. Began acting in high school. So, like, it has nothing here about his martial arts training. However, he coaches the martial artist who was playing Shang Tsung on the live tour, and in his free time, he developed a new form of martial arts. So, I suppose you got to be pretty good when you just decide to create a new form all by yourself. So he created
it shows
Chun
that he's a
Shin.
stuntman too.
So yeah, all right. So yeah, he must be pretty accomplished at that point.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is when they recently did a online series of Mortal Kombat, like kind of like a reboot.
Didn't he play Shang Tsung in that?
Yeah, he played Shang Tsung again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was. Listen, cool. In terms of Shang Tsung, because I remember how he looked in Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, and in 1 he was just like a super old guy, and in 2 he looked a little stereotypy, and so I think this guy looks like how I would want Shang Tsung to look. I think that this is the perfect time where it's time to say, you know what? I know what he looks like in the game. Don't care. This is how I want him to look. And that's what they did. And I think that was a great choice because that could have gone the wrong way.
Yeah, and what's really cool is now when he played the older version of Shang Tsung, it's like he's playing the old version of Shang Tsung from the first game. So it was cool. I think it's... But then with his other work, he was also in the movie Tekken.
Was he in Tekken? Oh, man, Kinetic has been trying to get me to watch that, and I have not seen it. Wow.
Oh, okay. He plays, like, Heihachi
okay,
Mishima.
I know who that is. Yep.
Yeah, so when I saw him in Tekken, and unfortunately I saw Tekken as well, I was like, hey, is he not getting any work except video game movies?
Well, so, it's really hard to find really good martial artists who can also act really well. I mean, if you think about it, there's not many of them. I can think of some martial artists who don't act very well, and I can think of some actors who do martial arts who aren't actually martial artists. But it's rare to find a good martial artist who does act really well. It's basically this guy and Jackie Chan at this point right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I would say Jet Li, but then his acting.
Yeah, his acting. It's not great. They find ways around it, and I love Jet Li. Don't get me wrong, love Jet Li, but it's basically this guy and Jackie Chan right now.
Yeah,
and. So I'm going to ask you, because you guys have mentioned it a couple times. Did you see, who was it, The Foreigner?
Oh, yeah. I saw it and Lam saw it.
Did you guys like it? You're scaring me, because I have been dying to see Jackie Chan return to form, or at least get a new something to... I don't want to see more tuxedo sequels. I don't want to see him do slapsticky stuff. I kind of want to see him do some more serious roles, and this looked like it was going to be it. And then you guys were so lukewarm on it, I got really scared.
Well, the thing is, for an action movie, it's an okay action movie. It's also because the issue with us is that me and Lam have watched a lot of Jackie Chan's Hong Kong work, in which he does play serious roles. For some of his more recent ones, and this movie doesn't seem to be up to par to those. Okay. But for American audiences that have not seen his other work, it's probably a good change. It's just that we really hope that it would have been better.
Yeah, you're not making me excited right now for it.
Well, I don't know. Like, I'm setting your expectations low, so you might enjoy it. Maybe.
I still really want to see it because it's Jackie Chan, and I'm pretty sure I've seen all of his movies so far, so I can't let one slip by. But I'm gonna tell you.
Well, yeah, Lam initially told me that he really disliked it, and I kind of didn't believe him, but so I still watched it anyway. So I could see why people would dislike it, but I could also see why people would enjoy it.
Okay.
So
well, we'll just roll with that then, and let's get back to the movie we're actually talking about. All right. So, Kitana, Princess Kitana, who's actually a Mortal Kombat 2 character, but some Mortal Kombat 2 elements did sneak their way into this game. It's played by Talisa Soto. Don't know where people would know her from other than, if I'm to understand her profile here, she was apparently in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue in, I don't know what year, sorry. Doesn't say. So if you're an aficionado out there who has all of your old swimsuit issues, you can probably go back and find her, I suppose, if you're that lonely. But this got dark all of a sudden. Let's think. What's she been in? Elysium's the most recent movie that she's been. She has not been in a ton of stuff. She was in Spy Hard with Leslie Nielsen, so that's something.
Oh yeah.
And she did come back for Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Oh man, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. That was a bad movie.
So you saw that before you saw this?
No,
one?
I saw them both in theaters, mind you.
Oh, okay.
Oh man.
I saw part 2 in theaters, and I really regretted it.
Yeah, part 2 was not good. I think killing off Johnny Cage in the first 3 minutes was probably not the most inspired choice.
Yeah, I think they were trying to go with the running joke in the games that Johnny Cage keeps on dying. So that could have been it, why they just killed him off right away, but yeah. Okay, so I do want to mention something about that, is that when Johnny Cage does his shadow kick so he has a special move called shadow kick. In the first movie, the one that we're talking about, it's ambiguous and kind of realistic, I would say, that as he's kicking into Scorpion's teleport, you don't know if he's actually doing a shadow kick or if it's actually, it's part of the teleport. And then the second movie, you actually see him just jump and suddenly have shadow kick
he
powers.
straight up just does a shadow kick. Yeah, they're really careful in this movie to, I can't say realistic because that's not the right word, but to not go, to try to not go too far outside of believability with some of the special moves that people do. Liu Kang did not throw a fireball. He did something similar to the fireball up close, and there was an effect with it. And they did it in such a way that you don't know if it's just because he was doing a fireball or because Shang Tsung has super magic powers that were going off at the time. Scorpion clearly had powers, Sub-Zero clearly had powers, but they set them up to be, different and otherworldly. The same with Reptile. Reptile was otherworldly. But for people that were Earth-based, they didn't, nothing crazy. Kano had a knife, so that was there. Sonya Blade did her leg thing. Liu Kang did not throw fireballs. He did do the bicycle kick, which is silly and stupid, but they just ripped that out of the game, so I don't blame him. And Johnny Cage, he did a pseudo shadow kick, but not really a shadow kick, but it, was enough to look like it. And then he did the ball buster too, so he had his signature moves in there.
Yeah. So they kept it like.
But then in the sequel, they did not adopt that same philosophy when people were turning into dragons and crap.
I was like, I remember in the sequel, like Nightwolf was like, "You got to learn your animality." And I was like, that was the worst line ever.
The sequel was trying very hard to pack in all the stuff from all the remaining games to make sure everybody got in there, even if they're just mentioned off screen. But they were too many people. Whereas this movie, part of the problem with a movie like this is that when you introduce a character, let's say, example, Art Lean, and I think to myself, well, you're not in the video games. And then I think, oh dear, they're going to kill that nice man, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so the funny thing, so he has this moment where he, connects with Johnny Cage. And then we don't see him again until he goes to fight Goro. And everyone is like super emotionally invested in him. Like even Sonya, who did not have any screen time with him outside of that fight.
I know. It's like, what just happened? Yeah. How do you know? How do you even know him?
I guess, am I supposed to believe that they were still hanging out at night? Like, I never really got a good feel for how many days this tournament was going on. Was it a fight a day, or was it like multiple fights in the same day? So, were they still having dinner together every night, and this was like a week in?
And you know what's funny that you say that? Like, it's a tournament, but it doesn't seem like it's a tournament. And then, like, near the end, Shang Tsung says something to Raiden, like, "Oh, the rules are quite clear." No, they're not.
they're really not. It's really odd, especially at one point where when Johnny Cage challenges Goro, And then Shang Tsung says, then I can challenge you or anyone else for a final battle. I'm like, okay, what about the rest of the tournament fighters? Like,
yeah, that's not a tournament.
you can't just do that.
Yeah.
The rules are arbitrary.
Yeah.
And so then, no, it's hand-to-hand fighting, but then Kano gets a knife, even when he just had a scene talking about how hand-to-hand fighting is what he respected. So, all right.
Yeah, and you know, when I was watching this with my girlfriend, and then like everyone was just fighting hand-to-hand, and then when Kano pulled the knife out, and she's like, wait, he can use a knife? It's like, I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Why did no one else have a weapon?
Yeah, well, except for when you went to a fight that had weapons. Like,
Yeah.
Liu Kang had that random fight where, like, now we're going to fight with staffs.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then sometimes
that was
Shang Tsung
random.
will steal the dude's soul, and sometimes he won't. And then that when Goro fights Art, and, like, Art is, like, really surprised, you know, that Goro's there. I think you just showed a montage of him beating, like, 30-some-odd people. You guys haven't been watching these to see who the other fighters are? Did you not hear about, like, he could not have possibly had 30-some fights that day, you know?
Yeah. And you know what's also funny I noticed was every time Goro's on screen, there's these two twins in the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know if you noticed this, but there's these two guys, twin guys, they don't have a shirt, and they always like scream, and then they look at each other and say, Goro, yeah! And then they just like, then cuts to
He's
some more
got
fighting
groupies.
and goes back
I don't
to
know.
them.
I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, that was kind of weird
that
too.
was all right. So Goro, I should probably mention Goro was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson, who, let's see, he was done a lot of voice work. He was in Lilo and Stitch. He was in Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. He was the voice of the Joker in The Batman.
Oh, the cartoon, the newer cartoon
the
one.
newish-ish, the one in 2004 to 2008 or so.
The one with emo Joker. I think.
He was the emo. I think he had dreadlocks too, if I'm remembering correctly. That one's
Yeah, it was a...
yeah. I didn't watch a lot of that. Let's see. He does a bunch of voices on Family Guy and American Dad and The Simpsons. So very accomplished voice actor. But he was the voice of Goro. I had no issue with the voice of Goro. Oh, he also, I did not know this. He was the voice of the Shredder in the newer Ninja Turtle series. The one that this had to have been the one from
the
the animated one.
the
This had to
3D
have been like the
animated?
recent one, like the one that just ended. So that must have been the one on Nickelodeon.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was the one. I think Quack worked on some of that.
Yeah, he was the voice in Shredder and a bunch of that. Let's see, voice of Trigon and Teen Titans, bunch of this guy does he does a ton of voices, including a lot of additional voice work on Tangled the series on Disney Junior. Everybody take a shot. Oh, he's also the voice of Quincy on Puppy Dog Pals, also on Disney Junior.
Yeah, I don't know any of these Disney Junior stuff.
Yeah, it was Puppy Dog Pals. It's a big show. I know who Quincy is. Anyway, yeah, I'm scrolling through his IMDb. I've been scrolling through this entire time we've been talking right now, and I am still on his 2007 work. So he's in DC Superhero Girls, which is something that my daughter's been like super into right now. So he's the voice of Mrs. Clayface, King Shark, and Trigun. Also does the voice of Sir Oliver, Omar, and King Kameya on Sophia the First on Disney Junior. There's a lot.
Wow, this guy is like, he's really busy.
I'm still scrolling. I am still in 2017. Let's see, Samurai Jack. He's the voice of Damongo. Holy cow. He was the voice of Otter in Tangled Before Ever After, which was I think that was the TV movie that set up Tangled, the series.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
Holy cow. All right, we can't. Okay, we have to move past this guy. I just hit 2016. He's a very accomplished voice actor. He voiced Goro. Goro looked terrible, sounded great, and it's just, as long as we're talking voice actors, we should mention Ed Boon did voice Scorpion, so he sounded exactly like he does in the game.
I thought it was hilarious in that scene though when Scorpion was. I guess that's hell. That's another realm when he was fighting Johnny Cage.
He takes him to the nether realm.
And then,
how did Johnny Cage get back?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because after that fight, my girlfriend was like, "So how is he gonna get back? He just killed his way back." So,
I wondered that too, because first of all, like he explodes, so that's not great. And then Johnny Cage apparently was carrying around his Mortal Kombat 3 friend. Was that 3 or 2 when he did the autograph, the friendship?
I
don't remember. But he had the stupid autograph where, "To my biggest fan," which is like, okay, he had to throw something in there. But let's talk about the ridiculousness of he brought that to his fight in the tournament he was in.
And had it in his pocket while fighting Scorpion.
And it was still in pristine condition when it fell out of his pocket. So Scorpion explodes. He's stuck in a hell dimension. Like, how is he going to get out?
Yeah, I have no idea. And then it just suddenly cuts to something else.
Yeah, it cuts to something else and he's back. I guess I'm of the belief that there's like a teleportation system that takes people to their fights on the island.
Oh yeah, Raiden can teleport.
Yeah. So Raiden got him.
Maybe
there
he
we
did
go.
it.
Raiden just came and got him.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when Scorpion was like kicking the thing that Johnny Cage was standing on. It's like, get down here. It's like, oh wow, Ed Boon recorded a new soundbite just for the movie.
All right. So last shout out to a voice actor, Shao Kahn and Reptile, both voiced by Frank Welker, who's super famous. I couldn't possibly list everything he's done, but voice of Megatron is what I know him best for.
Oh, the campy Megatron from
the one from the 80s.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
Also Soundwave, and he did Soundwave again for the movies. And I did not know this. I'm gonna have to watch this crap now. So for the last two Transformers movies, and I did not know this, but for Age of Evolution and for, I guess, The Last Night, which may have already come out, I literally have not been paying attention. He did go back to voice Megatron and Galvatron again, which is... Yeah,
really?
I thought Hugo Weaving did it up until that point, but apparently they just decided, hey, let's just let the dude who's been doing it literally his entire life just voice Megatron.
Yeah, because like they got Optimus voice,
Peter Cullen,
the same voice actor, so yeah. I remember they didn't have this guy for Megatron because they said he was too campy.
Yeah.
That's why they chose Hugo
apparently
Weaving.
He wasn't too campy to play him because he played him in the last movie. And I did not know that until this very second, and now I'm upset because I'm going to have to probably watch those. And I don't want to. I really don't want to.
I stopped watching it when Mark Wahlberg started taking over, and even then I should have just stopped watching it. I
watched the second one, and I was watching the second one, and I had no idea what was going on at any point in time. And I was starting to point out things like, isn't that same Decepticon in like two different scenes that are going on right now? And then
so it's just a copy paste.
And then I think when Sam died and went to Robot Heaven, I just said, you know what, I'm out. I'm done. I don't know why he's in Autobot Heaven. This is ridiculous.
That sounds so dumb.
Yeah. All right, I want to get off the cast. So real quick shout-outs now. Trevor Goddard is Kano. I don't know what he's from. Chris Casamassa, we've talked about him a lot. Francois Petit played Sub-Zero, also a pretty good martial artist. Keith Cook played Reptile when he was in human form. All right, let's talk about Reptile in human form for a second. What the... when I was in... I'm sorry, my brain just doesn't want to process this scene. When I was in high school and I saw this in the theater, I thought, awesome, now I get to see Reptile. Now, as somebody who's not in high school and I watched this, I think, so the statue ate him and made him into a human ninja?
Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason. Like, it's cool. And then so the other part of it was when he got thrown in the statue turned him into a reptile. Suddenly there's also a booming voice that says reptile.
Yeah. the announcer voice just says reptile, because of course it does, because why wouldn't? I mean, up until this point, everything that had been taken from the game in terms of the voices was Shang Tsung saying stuff. Even though he said flawless victory when Art was fighting Goro, and it was not flawless victory because he landed some shots.
Yeah, they don't know what flawless victory is because Liu Kang said the same thing.
He did. He was wrong. Only one time was it an actual flawless victory, and that was when Sub-Zero froze that one dude in one shot and he shattered after gaining a butt ton of momentum after it was frozen. That was really weird. The guy was just doing a random jump kick, and then Sub-Zero froze him, and then the guy went hum-chucking into the wall at light speed. Like, what kind of jump kick was this guy about to do?
And also, like, did they just have volunteers to do that? Like,
I'm presuming at that point that those were Outworld disciples who were willing to sacrifice themselves for the tournament. That's what I'm going with.
Okay, yeah.
That's more thought than Paul W.S. Anderson put into it, I'll promise you that. But yeah, that reptile scene. I mean, other than it was nice to see, Reptile show up and be green and stuff because he was a hidden character in the game. Although, really weird that he was announced on by somebody who wasn't there. Also worth noting, just because why not, is that the guy who played Reptile, Keith Cook, went on to play Sub-Zero in the sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Oh, yeah, the unmasked one.
That's about it. He was also in Beverly Hills Ninja, so him and Robert Shue did that together. He was the bad guy Nobu in that.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking about the reptile fight, and I'm like, where was Johnny Cage the whole
the entire time is just, I mean, he's just a no-show. He gets, he's like, Liu, what are you doing? And then Liu Kang grabs Reptile and tosses him into a statue, and then the statue swallows him and turns him into a ninja, like statues do. And then he kicks him through a brick wall, and a bunch of bricks land on Liu Kang's face, and then he's up and ready to go again. And at that point, Johnny Cage just kind of said, you know what? Not my circus, not my monkeys. And I guess he was just hanging out. Never went to help.
Yeah, like the whole time.
Didn't even like give a look in and be like, you all right, Lou? Need a hand? He's just hanging out. He didn't even show up after the fight when Katana was there to say this way. Like he still wasn't even there. Like they had to go find him wherever he was.
Yeah, maybe someone grabbed him. Maybe he got lost.
I don't know. I feel like there's a mini short movie in there somewhere where like what happened to Johnny Cage during the reptile fight where he wouldn't help.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not a lot. Johnny Cage complained a lot in this movie too. I forgot that. He complained a lot.
He did, and I enjoyed like, seeing all his jokes and stuff, and I think it was pretty funny when Liu Kang he just thought Liu Kang was like an errand boy, or he was trying to pay him, and then Liu Kang just like took the money and threw the luggage in the water.
He must have gone and retrieved it again, right? Because he still had a ton of luggage when they got back on the island. So
yeah, and who brings that much luggage? Like come on.
I get the joke, but seriously, just let it go.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, there was another cast member I want to just quickly mention is the guy who played Liu Kang's brother. His name is Stephen Ho.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he's the same guy. If you watch Conan O'Brien, he's the same guy that does all the stunt scenes.
Yeah, Conan brings him in all the time to do fun stunts and stuff. I love watching those segments. I never realized I really do.
Yeah, and like looking at his bio, Stephen Ho's bio, it's like, okay, you hired this accomplished like stuntman and martial artist to play a character that did not do much.
Yeah, such a throwaway character. But he's got stunts and crew work and stuff on all kinds of movies, like really popular movies. Spider-Man, Pirates of the Caribbean. What is he? Why does he have a what? All right, so Tony, I am not making this up right now. I'm looking at his IMDb page. He has 11 credits as a stunt coordinator on The Bachelor. The Bachelor. I'm not making this up. I looked him up as we were talking. He is listed as a stunt coordinator for The Bachelor. Now, I understand that I have not seen The Bachelor in a long time, but it's still a reality show about dating, right?
Yeah, I'm looking that specific thing up. It's apparently he directed a series of action scenes for some of the contestants. I don't know what that means.
On 11 episodes? He's listed as stunt coordinator for 11 different episodes.
Huh. Okay. I guess. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what kind of like contest or competition The Bachelor has now.
Listen. I will admit I have not seen that show ever, so I don't know what actually goes on an episode. I will tell you that, but I did not believe that anything happened that would require a stunt coordinator. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I agree.
Holy cow, yeah. He's done stunts on a ridiculous number of movies and apparently some reality TV shows. Wow, I'm so glad you took us down this rabbit hole, Tony. What in the what? The Bachelor.
I only wanted to talk about his Conan O'Brien appearance.
Well, now we had... no. Oh, man. Now it's ruined.
He's apparently also a stand-up comedian martial artist.
Well, I mean, he's naturally pretty funny, comedy. So that makes sense. All right, so this movie, actually, I'm there's no surprise to me they made a sequel to it. It made a ton of money. The budget was only like 18 mil, and this thing got over like 120 in the box office worldwide. And then when you include, all the take-home sales and the soundtrack, how have we not talked about this yet?
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is amazing.
This was an amazing soundtrack. It defined Mortal Kombat for the rest of Mortal Kombat. To this day, people still associate the music from this movie with Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, so my girlfriend never saw Mortal Kombat until this week, and when the music came up, she's like, I feel like I'm in a rave. so pretty accurate. Yeah. It was like, it's the same kind of feel with like the music and Blade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I had the entire soundtrack. And the soundtrack, did you listen to the soundtrack? It was like music from and inspired by Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
There were some songs on there that were not part of the movie that were just really odd.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But yeah, that theme song gets you pumping.
It does. It's the song was a huge part of this movie. The music is what really sold it. I think most people walked out of there, and it goes to show you how important music is for a movie, especially for a fighting movie like that. Because I mean, you think of, if you don't have that music, you basically have Dead or Alive here.
Yeah, that is true.
Without the charm. But the music can sell things, especially when you think of some of the fights that didn't have very good music in them and how ridiculously boring those were. Like, I don't think there was music for the Sonya Blade fight, or at least not good music.
Yes, I did notice that, because every other fight had pretty cool, like, pumped up music.
I think maybe because pumped up music would make it look even more ridiculous how slow and clumsily that fight was going on.
That's true.
That was a very slow fight.
And the fight with Katana and Liu Kang was a slower fight, but then they played like flute music.
Yeah, what?
So I guess it fit.
It's so ridiculous when they start playing that music. And first, they're not. Shang Tsung's not going to steal her soul during that fight. So, and
yeah,
they're not going to have Liu Kang lose this fight. Like, that would just be out of left field. So we made a movie based on the game, and we brought in a character from the sequel, and she's gonna beat the main character. So there's no tension in this fight at all, and it's only there just so Katana can say, you need the element that brings life, and which she could have just walked by his room and said that one day and saved us this action scene.
Yeah, and it takes her to show up at the fight so that Liu Kang would actually remember.
Yeah. And of course,
it's like she shows up. It's like, oh, the element that brings light. Oh, life, water. It's like,
yeah, which he still doesn't get until he's in the middle of the next fight, and then he doesn't understand until he sees a bucket of water start to freeze, and then he thinks to himself, oh, water, and says it to himself instead of acting right away in a fight that you might kill yourself for.
Which, by the way, the water was left there by Raiden, so it's like, why didn't Raiden just give him powers or something? But he just left water there, in which he relied on Liu Kang to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed that, because he brought the water in before the fight. Yeah.
Anyway, so a couple of notes here, as long as we're just talking about little funny things. I did not know this until I was doing research. Do you know that somebody else was originally supposed to be playing Sonya?
I did.
Cameron Diaz.
Who. Yeah,
apparently
that's right.
She broke her wrist training for it.
She got injured. Yeah, she got injured during the fight training, I think.
Yeah, she injured her wrist during the fight training. And then it makes a special note here that Bridget Wilson did all of her own stunts, including the fight scenes. Like, yeah, no, I got that. I got that, though. Thank you. Yes.
That's like William Hung saying he did all of his own singing.
I shouldn't be mean about it. Like, especially when you're brought in to replace somebody like that, you would only have so long to learn enough martial arts for the fighting scenes, and it was passable for that, but I mean, she very clearly didn't have the same length of time that, like, Lyndon Ashby had to play Johnny Cage.
Mm-hmm.
See if there's any other specifics I want to talk about before we can go sort of freestyle it. So we can talk about whatever we want.
I thought some scenes were really weird. Like, there was the fight between Liu Kang and Sub-Zero when they're going down that ramp. Like, Sub-Zero's doing all these flips down the ramp, and then Liu Kang just jumps up in the air and punches the air. Like, what?
There was physics took a vacation during this movie. I mean, especially, bear in mind that Liu Kang is able to defy gravity and do the bicycle kick. And then he kicked, remember when he kicked Reptile, and Reptile just flipped back end over end over end over end?
Oh, yeah.
And they show the camera from his perspective. They show the camera from Reptile's perspective, and it's actually flipping end over. And then he turns into Bugs, because that's how that works.
So about that, I remember a long time ago when I was watching it and talking to my friend about it back in, like, high school. And in high school, he was like, yeah, that's what reptiles eat. So, of course, when he's crushed, all the bugs will come out. I'm like, that's plausible, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm trying.
I guess.
Yeah. There was that other scene, too, with Liu Kang, when the three of them were in the banquet hall,
mm-hmm.
and they were fighting all those
all those
soldiers,
guys, yeah.
And then Liu Kang just suddenly, there's like this one quick scene of him. There's a rock on, like, I guess the rock part of, like, the staircase. He just, like, does a cartwheel on it, and then he looks at it, and then cuts back to the other people fighting.
That whole setup that premise was really dumb. If you remember when Johnny Cage says, this is the way that Katana went. And they're brushing these, like, giant cobwebs out of the way as they go.
Oh yeah.
And I thought to myself, no, Johnny Cage, there's no way Katana went that way because you guys are pushing the cobwebs out of the way just now.
Yeah,
So she
that's
clearly
true.
did not just go through there. You're an idiot.
That whole thing was just a setup for the joke where he was like, "I can smell her perfume,"
So that, yeah.
and then so that Sonya can say, "I smell something."
Exactly. It's just a setup for a joke, but it was ridiculous because there's no. They're pushing these giant cobwebs out of the way that were covering the entire archway. He says she came this way. I know. I'm like, no, she didn't, because there wouldn't be cobwebs if she did.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when Raiden shows up after that little fight and he points to all the other people, and I was amazed that all those people with all those weapons were able to very stealthily sneak into the room without the three of them knowing it.
And then just waiting until Raiden finishes talking.
They were waiting to be introduced before they decided to make themselves.
Yeah.
No, it's oh boy, it's it's not Citizen Kane. You know, I don't.
Yeah, there was a lot, and the other nice thing though that I was watching with captions this time is that there was a lot of dialogue I didn't realize was there, or I was remembering it wrong or interpreting it wrong. Like when at near the end when Liu Kang was saying, "Oh, I pity you, sorcerer," and then Shang Tsung's like, "Save your pity for the weak." Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, I didn't realize that weak meant like, you know, strong and weak. I thought he meant save your pity for the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
This is a pity-free zone until the weekend, my friend.
Yeah, it's like, what? So save it for next week? Like, what?
So as long as we're talking about that Shang Tsung fight at the end, so good martial arts while the two of them are fighting each other. And then, like, they try to make it really... That whole first you must fight your enemy, then you must face yourself, then you must face your worst fear, however that worked out. I don't know. Thank goodness Katana was there to whisper it to Johnny Cage so he could keep up. But, so you have the good fight scene, and then when it starts getting weird, like when Shang Tsung starts drawing on other warriors, again, wouldn't that have been a nice time to call back Art, the character that everyone apparently cared so much about?
That's true. And then my girlfriend was also asking, what about the other guy, the WMSC master guy?
It would have made a lot of sense if the people whose soul we just saw him steal were to come back, just to kind of like cement it. You know, probably could have been a pretty pivotal scene there when you see, especially, you know, Art, who it was buddies with everybody. They were really close. They were all yelling and screaming and inspired. I mean, he's the unsung hero of the movie because his death at the hands of Goro is what inspired Johnny Cage to be proactive and then challenge Goro to a fight in which he won, which then was the catalyst to sort of get rid of the premise of the tournament and have Shang Tsung bring Sonya up, which then inspired Liu Kang to finally embrace his destiny as the descendant of Kung Lao to challenge Shang Tsung to Mortal Kombat in order to save the world. So I wonder if Art didn't die and none of that stuff happened, would they have just been waiting to fight Goro and you know, would it?
So what you're saying is Art is kind of like Coulson for the Avengers.
Yes, he is. If it wasn't for Art Lean making the ultimate sacrifice, none of that would have been possible. And he doesn't even get to say goodbye to everybody when all the souls of Shang Tsung are released.
Yeah, right. Like, where was he? Because he knew them. He met them.
You don't think he'd been like, hey, by the way, thank you for that, Johnny Cage, and then left? I don't. Yeah. What a waste. What a waste.
But oh well. I guess that's a learning point for Paul Wes Anderson. Paul W.S.
Yeah.
What's his middle name? Yeah, W.S. Yeah. Okay.
Sure. All right.
Oh, and there was so much exposition.
There was a lot of really painful exposition, stuff that people should have known ahead of time that they did not know for reasons that I don't understand. And a lot of Raiden just like showing up and talking to people.
Yeah. Or like, the fate of the world is going to be determined by 3 people on the boat or something. And he starts laughing. And then he's like, sorry. I was like, okay, that's just Highlander.
Yeah, I remember that was in every single one of the trailers. So 3 people on a leaky boat are going to save the world. Exactly. Oh, that was in every single trailer for this movie. I remember that.
Yeah, I think back then there wasn't announcers in trailers,
No,
right?
you didn't get a whole lot of the announcer voice guy back then.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. The dialogue was really clunky. I especially remember when the 3 of them were like sneaking to overhear Goro and Kano and Shang Tsung talking, and there was so much exposition going on there that was just ridiculous. Things that you would have thought would have come up before now Kano goes to some mysterious island and he's working for Shang Tsung, and he never once stops to ask, so what's going on? What's the plan here? What am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, there was like, and then that's where you learn who Goro is and learn where Kano is from. And yeah, it was the whole boat scene too. Every time Shang Tsung showed up, every time he was on camera, there was exposition from him.
And so the biggest crime here is he shows up and he says, he was talking about Sub-Zero and Scorpion. They had just been introduced, and he says, they are bitter enemies, but under my control, they fight side by side. And it just made me think, I bet there's a really good story there that you could have told us instead of just giving us that line and letting it go at that.
The first time I saw that, when I saw them just like not even like acknowledge each other, I was like, this is weird. And I was hoping that Sub-Zero or Scorpion wanted them to break away from the spell or something and then fight each other, but that never happened. And it's like such a big part of the game, you know, like that they're bitter enemies.
It's a huge part of the game, but it's brushed aside so that we could focus on Johnny Cage and Liu Kang and Sonya Blade, the three people that nobody likes to play as.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I know some Johnny Cage people, I suppose, but man, nobody, especially in the first game, nobody played as Liu Kang.
Yeah, and then and actually they took the bicycle kick from the second game.
Yes, the bicycle kick came from the second game, because in the first game, I guess he had a flying jump kick thing, and then he did the fireball, right? Did he do the fireball in the first game?
Yeah, he did a fireball and jump kick, and that was about it. Flying kick.
So... I mean, it's Mortal Kombat. Again, I wasn't expecting Citizen Kane, and I wasn't expecting gritty realism, but wow.
It's
still fun. It's
really
a fun movie.
movie.
Listen, there are some video game movies that I cannot go back and watch again. I just can't. They're painful. I don't think I have another viewing of Street Fighter Legend of Chun-Li in me. I don't think I could do it. But I mean, this one it was not a bad watch in terms of sitting down just to watch it today, and I can't always say that, so, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, I when I saw it, I always and even until today, I always say for me, it's like the best video game adaptation for a movie. And I still stand by that, even though now I still think it's not. I think it's not that great, but I still stand by that it's one of the best video game adaptations.
Yeah, I mean video game adaptations tend to go one of two different directions. There's either we need to be very, very faithful to the source material, or we need to just take the source material very loosely and make our own thing out of it. And neither one of those works especially well. You know, it's not really a formula that you can do. It's all in director and script, really. But I would say this movie has some silly parts, and there's certainly some clunky parts to it. But one thing I can say about it, to its credit, is that it's very much feels like Mortal Kombat. I mean, especially when the fights start and all of a sudden some guy shows up and he has a fight, and then some other guy shows up and he has a fight, and then Goro shows up and beats like 30 people in a row, and then there's the fight with Goro, and then the tournament kind of degrades at that point. And I wonder what like the other fighters thought. Like once that whole Goro thing happened, and Shang Tsung grabbed Sonya Blade and took her back to Outworld, and then everyone else followed her. Like, so let's say you're not one of those three people. Let's say you're just another one of those randos from the tournament. What are they doing right now? Are they just looking at each other, wondering like, so do we still fight, or are we done?
Yeah, are they just stuck on the island?
Are we? Oh, is the boat coming back? Anybody?
Yeah, and I just realized this whole thing takes place on an island that is still in the Earth realm, right? Otherwise, Raiden would not have his powers if it was not. So, how did all these magical beings exist on... Well, I guess they can. I mean, never mind. Sorry. The ninjas are in Earth realm, so that makes sense.
Yep, it's...
Makes sense in my head.
All right. I think we can start wrapping this one up. I think we've talked this one to death a little bit. So now is the time on Hero Talk where we're going to talk about what our favorite part of the movie was. And Tony, you're the only other one here. I'll start with you. What did you think? What was your favorite part of Mortal Kombat?
As odd as it sounds, my favorite part was the entire reptile fight.
That's fair. I will say it was of the fight scenes in the movie, that one was my favorite. It was very well done in terms. I mean, there was a lot of silliness. Yeah. But in terms of choreographed fights, that was probably the most fun to watch. And they definitely made Reptile have an impact when he showed up, even though the whole turning statue thing was silly. once he showed up, and they did a good job of selling that he was stronger than anybody else that Liu Kang had fought up until that point.
Yeah, and when I first saw that, I was just like, oh, this looks like, in Mortal Kombat the game, Reptile was like a hidden character. You had to do crazy things to get to, and then when you fight him, he's intensely difficult. And this captured that feel of like, oh, Liu Kang's that good. He got a bonus fight with Reptile. And then that fight was intense, and actually I think it was the fastest paced one with like, it was also with like the coolest music.
Yes. I'll give you that. It's very strong. Up until probably my last couple of viewings of this movie, I would have said that was my favorite part. But I'm gonna take it lowbrow here a little bit, because my favorite part is the ball buster.
Oh,
I mean, it's just funny. It's just hilarious. I know it's the lowest form of humor, but when Goro, he's clutching himself with the bottom set of hands. The top set of hands are just sticking out. His eyes dilate, and he's just there screaming and looking like an idiot. And it's just fun.
And they zoomed in. They zoomed into his eyes, like opening wide too.
Yes, they did.
That was pretty funny.
And in terms of moves, like if you're Johnny Cage and you're fighting Goro, like he's just decided there's a time, I think, as a fighter when you have to decide, am I above this? And Johnny Cage said, no, I am not.
And that was funny after, and he was like, damn, that hurt.
Like it hurt his hand. That was, and then it must have softened him up, because the guy, when they do the very far away shot for the martial arts, that's when you were seeing some really keyed in kicks right there. But then Goro just goes down so easy after that. And like, well, to be fair, he was not operating 100%.
It was so funny too, because he kept telling like, was it Sonya and Raiden that he had a plan? And I was like, oh, I guess that's a good plan.
Sure, he had a plan. I will give him that. He made a plan. It was a
very clear plan.
But it gave Johnny Cage something to do, because he wasn't going to be the hero. You knew it was going to be Liu Kang, so he needed something to do. So I gave it to him.
Yeah. Although the thing that kind of bothered me about that was he said to Sonya that he was doing it because he didn't want what happened to Art happen to her, and he was like, not her. Like it's almost like he fell in love with her for no reason.
They definitely. I'm glad we get to talk about this now. Yeah, they start off not liking each other, and then we don't see them interact at all for a while, and then all of a sudden he's like really into her, and he's trying to protect her and stuff like that. And I feel like there was a middle part there that we didn't get to see. And like if it wasn't for the fact that I knew that they had some sort of relationship in the game universe, I wouldn't have bought that at all. And so for somebody who might not be super familiar with the whole game lore, that would have seemed really odd. That like, oh, so now what? They're into each other? That's random.
Well, what's also kind of random, well, not random, but I don't think the game lore had the relationship until after the movie.
I thought that was a thing.
Yeah.
Was that not a thing?
I don't recall it in 1 and 2. And I think it was only recently that they even got together, and now they have a daughter.
Yeah.
But I don't remember it. I feel like the games went with what was in the movie.
Maybe you're right. Huh. Well, then that makes it even weirder,
not sure.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe going into the viewing, I probably was remembering the most recent game lore stuff, which I'm still relatively familiar with. But, all right, I'm not going to think about this any more than I have to, because that's... All right, so now I guess we got to give it a score. And as I am wont to do on Hero Talk, I want to remind my listening audience that review scores are dumb, and they don't matter, and they're arbitrary, and they mean nothing. And you've just listened to us talk about this movie for about an hour, so if you don't know what we think about it by now, I don't see what giving it an arbitrary score is going to do, but why not? Let's just be fun. So Tony, what would you score Mortal Kombat?
Let's see. I will score it 10 Mortal Kombat victories from Outworld.
It's the 10th victory from Outworld? You scored it the fall of Earth, basically. I wouldn't say it was the fall of Earth bad. I would definitely say it's getting your luggage thrown into the ocean bad. So
that would
that's
be
my
fair
score.
Too.
Getting your luggage thrown into the ocean, or no more stairs.
Well, I mean,
maybe it's no more stairs. Maybe because that's how you feel at the end of it.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
like, no more stairs. Yeah.
Yeah, but that cliffhanger ending though.
Oh, that cliffhanger and. I mean, I guess it got a sequel, so I can't say, oh, that's cute, you think you're getting a sequel, but I felt at that point it was like, did you really need to bait the sequel like that?
Yeah, it almost felt like it was like one of the original like post-credit scenes, even though it was not post-credit.
And then He ruined their day. All those kids are there with their banners and stuff, and there's a good time, and everyone's celebrating. And then, what a jerk! Like, just save it for a day, will you?
Yeah, and that CG was bad too.
It's really, really bad. I mean, they basically redid that whole part for the sequel because it just looked terrible.
Well, yeah, and then they had almost an entire
and then they
cast.
had all different people in that scene. So they basically, it would have looked really weird if, they suddenly turn and there's 3 different people standing there that weren't there before. All right.
Yeah.
So before we wrap this up, I guess, Tony, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the listeners out there?
About the movie
about
or
anything.
just anything or I guess not really, but you guys can check out my podcast over at No Time for Time Travel. You can follow us on Twitter. I manage that account. It's NTFTTPod, and I've been also streaming some gameplay of the new Dragon Ball FighterZ game on Twitch. Yeah. I really enjoy it, and I'm getting my ass beaten all the time from that game. But it's a really fun game. I've played some of the Dragon Ball Z fighter games before, and I mean they are hit or miss. I would say I'm much more forgiving of them because they're Dragon Ball Z than I really should be, but this it has a real Marvel vs. Capcom feel to it, and just in terms of the look and the atmosphere of the game. I haven't actually played it myself, but it intrigues me because it seems like in terms of fighting game styles, it's much more intuitive than some of the previous iterations have been. Yeah, have you played Guilty Gear?
No, I've not. Well, at least not in this decade.
Okay, well, this game though, like it's a competitive fighter.
Okay.
It's legitimately a competitive fighter.
That's pretty cool.
So it's a good game.
Can you go Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan in it?
Yeah, you kind of choose the characters from the beginning. You don't transform, so the characters are set. So you choose, the Super Saiyan Goku, or you do the Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan like Vegeta or Goku.
So wouldn't that be like, once you unlock Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku, wouldn't that be just who you'd want to play as from then on and never base form Goku?
I actually prefer base form. So the characters, it's still a fighting game, competitive fighter, so everyone's still on even balance leveling, playing field. It's the movesets that are different, and I honestly don't like the moveset for Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's more of like teleports and close combat.
Huh. Okay.
So yeah.
That's fair. Can you play as Hercule?
Unfortunately not. That would have been fun.
Even Dragon Ball Z Tenkaichi had Hercule in it.
Yeah. You can play as Yamcha, and it is really ridiculous.
Yeah. Does he do the Wolf Fang Fist?
Yep. And I don't understand how it, affects all these other people.
It's so ridiculous. Oh, yeah. Yamcha. All right. Well, that's enough Dragon Ball Z talk. So, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to follow any links to Tony's stuff, go to Enthusiacs.com, click on the link for the Real Hero Talk on Mortal Kombat, and I will have links to No Time for Time Travel and the Loosely Connected Network there. Tony, thank you so much for coming on Hero Talk.
All right. Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
All right, awesome. Yeah, welcome back anytime. Will you come back on sometime? I'm gonna put you on the spot. You want to come back on?
Oh yeah, sure. And I was gonna see if I think Quack would be interested in coming on too.
Yeah, Quack is more than welcome to come on. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think you could have some interesting questions for him since he's an animator.
Yeah. Wow. I would have some interesting questions for him. All right, absolutely. So keep listening here if you want to, hear some more stuff. You might actually hear Tony and Quack make a return to Hero Talk. In the meantime, if you go to Enthusiacs.com, you can check out some more of our podcasts, our videos, our Let's Plays, our reviews, interviews. You can also find us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Just search for Enthusiacs. And until next time, this is Judge Greg saying, flawless victory.